I am James, 36 years old, and my sister-in-law just looked my 4-year-old daughter in the eye and told her she wasn't civilized enough to eat at the same table as the adults. Before I tell you how I legally evicted my entire toxic family from a mansion they didn't even know I owned, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories travel. It happened on Easter Sunday. The sun was shining over Fairfield, Connecticut. The kind of day that looks perfect on a postcard but feels suffocating when you're wearing a tie you hate. We were at the Hawthorne estate. It's this sprawling, colonial-style property that has been in our family name for 3 generations. Or at least, that's what my brother Robert and his wife Vanessa like to tell people at their country club. My wife, Sarah, was already tense in the car ride over. She was clutching a Tupperware container of her homemade potato salad like it was a shield. "Just promise me you won't let her bait you, James," Sarah said, smoothing down our daughter Mia's dress. "Let's just get through brunch, hide the Easter eggs, and go home." "I promise," I said. I gripped the steering wheel of our 7-year-old Honda Odyssey. It was a reliable car, but pulling it up the driveway next to Robert's leased Porsche Cayenne always felt like a statement I didn't intend to make. As soon as we walked into the grand foyer, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vanessa was standing there, holding a crystal flute of mimosa. She looked like she had stepped out of a magazine spread for people who have never worked a day in their lives. "Oh," Vanessa said, looking at our shoes. "You're here. James, did you park around the back? The caterers need the front drive clear." "Good to see you too, Vanessa," I said, forcing a smile. "I parked in the guest spots, like always." "Well, just make sure that car isn't visible from the road. The mayor might drop by later." I felt Sarah's hand squeeze my arm. "Don't take the bait." We walked into the main dining hall. It was spectacular, I'll give her that. Fresh orchids on every table, linen napkins folded into swans, a jazz quartet playing softly in the corner. My parents, Bill and Ellen Hawthorne, were holding court near the fireplace. My brother Robert, the golden child, was loudly recounting a deal he supposedly closed last week at the bank. "James," my father boomed. He didn't hug me. He patted my shoulder firmly, the way you greet an employee you're about to lay off. "Glad you made it. Robert was just telling us about the new portfolio he's managing. Huge numbers. Maybe you should take some notes, son." "Hi, Dad," I said. "This is Ben and Mia." My kids looked up at their grandfather, waiting for a hug. "Hello, kiddos," Dad said, briefly glancing at them before turning back to Robert. "So, the commission on that must be staggering, Rob." I swallowed the lump in my throat. I was used to being the invisible son, the freelancer who just scraped by. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know that the freelance consulting I did was actually managing my own private equity firm. They didn't know that the software company I sold 5 years ago had put 8 figures into my bank account. They saw a guy in a polo shirt driving a minivan, and that was all they wanted to see. We sat down. The trouble started 20 minutes later. My son Ben, who is 6, was coloring quietly at the kids' table. Vanessa had set the kids' table in the corner, far away from the VIPs. Ben is a good kid. He's energetic, sure, but he's sweet. He reached for a pitcher of orange juice. The pitcher was heavy crystal, ridiculously heavy for a child. His hand slipped. Crash. The sound of shattering glass cut through the jazz music like a gunshot. Orange juice soaked into the Persian rug. The room went silent. Ben's lip quivered. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Before I could even stand up, Vanessa was there. She didn't check if Ben was cut by the glass. She didn't ask if he was okay. She pointed a manicured finger at his face. "Look what you've done," she screeched. Her voice wasn't the polite society voice anymore. It was sharp and ugly. "That is an antique, you stupid child. Do you have any idea how much that rug costs?" "Vanessa, stop," I said, moving quickly to Ben's side. "It's an accident. I'll pay for the cleaning." "Pay for it?" Vanessa laughed. A cruel, high-pitched sound. "With what money, James? That rug is worth more than your car." She turned to the room, addressing the 40 guests watching with wide eyes. "This is exactly why I said we shouldn't invite them," Vanessa announced. "Your children are simply too disruptive for civilized gatherings. They are feral. They act like trash." I froze. I saw Sarah checking Ben's hands for glass shards, tears streaming down her face. I saw my brother Robert taking a sip of his wine, looking bored. I looked at my mother. "Mom," I said. My mother sighed, adjusting her pearls. "James, honestly, you really should have taught them better manners before bringing them to a formal event. Vanessa put so much work into these things." That was it. The snap. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the sound of a heavy steel door closing in my mind. I picked Ben up. I took Mia's hand. I looked at Sarah and nodded. "We're leaving," I said. My voice was calm. Scary calm. "Good," Vanessa huffed, crossing her arms. "And don't bother coming to the Memorial Day Gala next month. In fact, until you can afford a nanny to teach them how to behave, just keep them away from the estate. We don't need the embarrassment." "You're banning my children from seeing their grandparents?" I asked, looking directly at my father. My father shrugged. "It's Vanessa's house, James. She runs the social calendar. Maybe it's for the best. Give it a year or two." Vanessa's house. The irony almost made me laugh out loud. I looked at Vanessa. She was smirking, feeling victorious. She thought she had just exerted her dominance over the poor relation. She thought she had won. "Okay," I said, "if that's how you want it." "That is exactly how I want it," she said. "Goodbye, James." I didn't slam the door. I walked out with my head high. I buckled the kids into the minivan. Sarah was crying silently in the passenger seat. "I'm so sorry, James," she whispered. "I know how much you wanted them to have a relationship with your family." "Don't be sorry," I said, starting the engine. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. "Who are you calling?" she asked. "Vance," I said. "Your lawyer?" "Yeah." I dialed the number. It was Sunday, but Vance always answered my calls. "James?" Vance's voice came through the Bluetooth speakers. "Everything okay? I thought you were at the brunch." "I was," I said, pulling out of the long driveway, looking at the massive house in the rearview mirror one last time. "Vance, initiate Protocol 0. There was a pause on the line. Vance knew exactly what that meant. "Are you sure, James? That's the nuclear option. Cuts everything. The maintenance, the staff salaries, the credit cards for the event planning, the landscaping. Everything." "I'm sure," I said. "Vanessa just kicked my kids out of the house. She said it's her house." I checked the mirror again. "I think it's time she finds out who actually pays for the roof over her head. Cut it all, Vance. Effective immediately." "Done," Vance said. I hung up. For the first time all day, I smiled. The drive home was quiet, but it wasn't a sad quiet. It was the silence of clarity. To understand why that phone call to Vance was so destructive, you have to understand the lie my family has been living for 5 years. Growing up, I was always the backup child. Robert was the star. He was the quarterback, the prom king, the business major. I was the nerd who spent hours in the basement coding on a clunky desktop computer. My parents didn't understand technology, so they assumed I was just playing games. "Get a real job like your brother," my dad would say, every time Robert got a promotion at the bank. I did get a job. I built a logistical software platform for shipping companies. It wasn't sexy. It didn't involve wearing expensive suits or drinking scotch with clients. It involved 18-hour days, cold pizza, and sleeping under my desk. 5 years ago, a global logistics giant bought my company. The payout was $12.5 million after taxes. I remember the day the money hit my account. I drove to my parents' house, shaking with excitement. I had a bottle of champagne. I was finally going to prove to them that I was worthy. When I walked in, they were popping their own champagne. "Robert just made vice president," my mom screamed, hugging my brother. "We are so proud. Finally, someone in this family is making a real legacy." "That's great," I had said, hiding the bottle behind my back. VP. Wow. He's going to be making 6 figures, James? My dad sneered slightly. Maybe he can loan you some money to fix that transmission on your car. Everyone laughed. Vanessa laughed the loudest. In that moment, I realized something painful. They didn't want me to be successful. If I was successful, it would disrupt the family narrative. Robert was the prince. I was the jester. If I told them I was a multimillionaire, they wouldn't love me more. They would just love my money. They would expect me to fix their problems, pay their debts, and I would never know if they actually cared about me. So I kept my mouth shut. I put the money into a diversified portfolio. I set up a blind trust called the Hawthorne Heritage Fund. Here is the secret. My parents are broke. They blew through their savings years ago trying to maintain a lifestyle they couldn't afford. The family estate, that beautiful mansion where the brunch was held, was facing foreclosure 5 years ago. I bought it. I had Vance set up an LLC to purchase the debt and the deed. I told my parents that a private investor had taken over the mortgage and was allowing them to live there as part of a heritage preservation tax scheme, as long as they maintained the property. They bought the lie because it flattered their ego. Then I started funding everything. Through the trust, I paid for the landscaping, the pool maintenance, the taxes, and even a stipend for event hosting that Vanessa used to throw her parties. I was the invisible engine keeping their fantasy world running. I did it because they were family. I did it because I wanted my kids to have a place to visit their grandparents. But that night, after the Easter brunch, as I sat in my modest kitchen with Sarah, looking at the red swelling on Ben's wrist where he had bumped the table, I realized I had been an idiot. "You're really going to stop it all?" Sarah asked. She was holding a mug of tea, her eyes red. "Everything," I said. "I looked at the ledger last week, Sarah. Do you know how much Vanessa spent on the spring equinox party last month? $15,000. Do you know where that money came from?" "The trust," Sarah whispered. "My pocket," I corrected. "I paid for the champagne she used to toast herself. I paid for the rug she screamed at Ben about. I paid for the very air conditioning she was breathing." I pulled up my laptop. I logged into the secure portal for the trust. "Look at this." I pointed to the screen. Sarah gasped. "Robert's business loan? He's not a vice president anymore," I revealed. "He got demoted to a junior consultant role 2 years ago. He's been borrowing from the trust to cover his car payments and Vanessa's credit card bills. He thinks it's a bank loan. He doesn't know the lender is his little brother. James." Sarah looked at me with a mix of shock and admiration. "They are going to drown. They've been treading water on my back for 5 years," I said, closing the laptop. "It's time they learned how to swim." The next morning, the first domino fell. I received a notification from Vance. Services suspended. Accounts frozen. Notification letters sent to occupants regarding breach of heritage contract due to lack of funds. I went to my job. Yes, I still work because I love what I do, and I waited. At 10:03 a.m., my phone rang. It was my mother. "James." Her voice was frantic. "Something is wrong with the gardener. He didn't show up. The grass is looking scruffy, and we have the garden club meeting on Thursday. Ideally, Mom, you should call the landscaping company," I said, putting her on speaker while I typed an email. I did. They said the account is on hold. Payment declined. Can you believe the rudeness? "Well, did you pay the bill?" I asked calmly. "The trust handles that, James. You know that. We don't deal with the bills." "But nobody at the trust office is picking up the phone." "That's strange," I said. "Maybe they're restructuring." "Restructuring? We can't have restructuring. The hydrangeas need pruning." Vanessa is hysterical. "I'm sorry, Mom. I have to get back to work. I have a deadline." "James, don't you hang up on me when we are in a crisis." "Mom," I said, dropping my voice. "Yesterday, Vanessa told me I wasn't welcome at the estate. Remember? She said my family was trash. Trash doesn't typically help with gardening issues." "Oh, stop being so dramatic," she scoffed. She was just stressed. Be a man and help your family. I am being a man, Mom. I'm focusing on my own household. Good luck with the grass. I hung up. My heart was pounding, but for the first time in my life it wasn't from fear. It was from adrenaline. The silence from the trust wasn't an error. It was the new reality. The checks had stopped coming. 3 weeks went by. The silence was deafening, but I knew it was the calm before the storm. I didn't go near the estate, but in a small town like Fairfield, news travels fast. And when you have an ally on the inside, it travels even faster. My Aunt Clara is the only one in the family who treats me with respect. She's my dad's sister, a sharp-tongued widow who never bought into Vanessa's nonsense. I had invited her over for dinner that Friday. Clara walked in, holding a bottle of Pinot Noir and laughing. "James, darling," she kissed my cheek. "You missed a hell of a show at the club today." We sat down on the patio. Sarah brought out some grilled chicken. "Tell us everything," Sarah said. "Well," Clara poured a glass of wine. "Robert's birthday is coming up, right? The big 4-0. Vanessa has been bragging about this yacht gala she was planning. Apparently, she chartered the Sea Mist. It's the biggest boat in the marina." I nodded. I knew the Sea Mist. Rental cost $8,000 for the evening, catering not included. So, Clara took a sip. "Vanessa goes to the marina office today to finalize the menu. I was there picking up my boat registration. She hands them that platinum Amex card she flashes around like a badge of honor." I leaned forward. That card was linked to a subaccount of the trust, which I had zeroed out 20 days ago. "The girl at the counter runs it," Clara chuckled. "Declined." "Ouch," Sarah winced. Vanessa laughs it off. "Oh, silly chip readers," she says. "Try it again." They try it again. Declined. Insufficient funds or account frozen. I don't know which, but the machine made that awful buzzing noise. "What did she do?" I asked. "She turned purple," Clara said. "She started screaming at the poor girl, saying she knows the owner, saying she's going to have the girl fired. Then she pulls out another card. Robert's card. Declined. Then a third one. Declined." I took a bite of chicken, savoring the flavor. "So, no yacht party?" "No yacht party," Clara confirmed. She stormed out screaming about bank errors and lawsuits. But here is the kicker, James. On my way out, I saw Robert in the parking lot. He wasn't on the phone with the bank. Who was he talking to? Clara lowered her voice. "He was talking to Vinny, the shark Moretti." I froze. "The loan shark." "The very same," Clara said gravely. "Robert looked terrified, James. He was sweating. I heard him say, 'The money is coming. Just give me another week. My inheritance is tied up.'" Inheritance. That word hung in the air. Robert was banking on money he didn't have, from parents who were broke, to pay off debts he shouldn't have accrued. "He's gambling again, isn't he?" I asked. "Looks like it," Clara said. "And if he's going to Vinny, he's desperate. Vanessa doesn't know, does she?" "Vanessa thinks money grows on trees," I said. "She thinks the trust is an infinite well." "Well," Clara looked at me with shrewd eyes. "Whoever controls that trust seems to have turned off the tap. And frankly, it's about time." She didn't know it was me. I wanted to tell her, but not yet. The next day, my phone rang again. It was Robert. He hadn't called me just to chat in a decade. "Hey, little brother." His voice was tight, forced casualness. "How's life? How's the computer stuff?" "It's good, Rob. What's up?" "Listen, I'm in a bit of a bind. Temporary cash flow issue. The bank, banking regulations, they froze some assets for an audit. Standard procedure, total headache." "Sounds rough," I said. "Yeah, so I need to borrow a little cash, just for a week, to cover the deposit on the yacht. I can't let Vanessa down, you know? She's got her heart set on this party." "How much?" I asked just to see the number. 10 grand, he said quickly. "I'll pay you back 15 next week. I promise." $10,000. To throw a party while he was owing money to a loan shark. The delusion was incredible. I don't have 10 grand lying around, Rob. I lied. I'm just a freelancer, remember? Business has been slow. Come on, James. His voice snapped. The nice guy mask fell off instantly. I know you have savings. Don't be a cheapskate. This is for the family reputation. If we cancel this party, we look like fools. Maybe you shouldn't book parties you can't afford, I said. Who are you to lecture me? He shouted. I am the vice president of Robert. I cut him off. I can't help you. Maybe ask Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad are tapped out, he screamed, and then stopped, realizing what he had admitted. I mean, their liquidity is low. Look, if you don't help me, I'm going to tell Mom you're refusing to support the family. You know how that goes. Go ahead, I said. Tell her. While you're at it, tell her why your credit cards are declined. I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage. He was willing to throw me under the bus to protect his ego. That evening, I got an email from the Hawthorne Family Trust official account, which, of course, goes to my secret inbox. It was a message from Vanessa, sent to the trust administrators. Subject: urgent payment failure to whom it may concern. This is Vanessa Hawthorne. There has been a mistake with our stipend. I demand this be rectified immediately or I will be contacting my lawyers. We have a lifestyle to maintain and this interruption is unacceptable. I replied as the administrator. Dear Mrs. Hawthorne, pursuant to Clause 4.2 of the Occupancy Agreement, discretionary funding is subject to periodic review. The benefactor has determined that current expenditures exceed the allocated budget for charitable support. All stipends are suspended indefinitely pending a full audit of the estate's management. I hit send. The benefactor. That was me. 2 days later, Robert's birthday came and went. No yacht, no party, just a barbecue in the backyard of the estate. But even that was a disaster. I drove by the estate that weekend just to see. The grass, usually manicured like a golf course, was shaggy. The hedges were overgrown. The pristine white fountain in the front yard was dry. It was starting to look like what it really was, a money pit that nobody could afford. But Vanessa wasn't going down without a fight. She took her anger to the one place she had power: social media. When you can't attack the money, you attack the character. That was Vanessa's strategy. I woke up on Tuesday to my phone blowing up. Notifications from Facebook and Instagram. Vanessa had posted a long, tearful status update. She didn't name me directly, but she didn't have to. It breaks my heart to see how selfish some family members can be, she wrote. We have opened our home and our hearts for years, hosting every holiday, keeping the family traditions alive. But when hard times hit, certain people who have benefited from our generosity, turn their backs. It's sad when jealousy over success destroys a family. Please pray for us as we deal with this betrayal. The comments were infuriating. So sorry, Vanessa. Some people are just leeches. Ignore the haters, hun. You are the queen of that family. Is this about the brother-in-law? The one with the wild kids? I always got a bad vibe from him. Sarah was furious. She is projecting. She is describing herself and pinning it on you. Let her talk, I said, putting my phone away. She's panicking. She's trying to control the narrative because she can't control the reality. The reality was getting worse for them. The week before Memorial Day, the date of the annual Hawthorne family reunion, I met with Vance and Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas is a client of mine. He's also the president of the country club where Robert and Vanessa pretend to be royalty. He's a billionaire, a real one, not a fake one like my brother. James, Mr. Thomas said, leaning back in his office chair, your brother applied for membership renewal. He asked to put it on a payment plan. I assume you declined? I asked. We did, but he dropped your name, said you would vouch for him. I sighed. Mr. Thomas, I am not vouching for him. In fact, I need a favor. The family reunion is happening at the estate next Sunday. I'm going to need you to come as my guest. To the estate? Mr. Thomas raised an eyebrow. I thought you were banned. I am, I smiled. But the landlord isn't. I spent the next few days gathering paperwork. It was a stack of documents 3 inches thick. The deed to the house, owner, JH Holdings LLC. 5 years of bank transfers totaling $1.2 million. The foreclosure notice from 5 years ago that I intercepted. The invoices for every party Vanessa ever threw. And the smoking gun. A report from a private investigator Vance hired, showing Robert's gambling debts and the unauthorized withdrawals he made from my parents' retirement accounts, which I had also secretly topped up. It was a dossier of destruction. The atmosphere in my house was tense. Sarah was worried. What if they get violent, James? Robert is unstable. I've hired security, I told her. 2 guys. Plain clothes. They'll be outside. You really think we need security? When you take away a narcissist's mask, I said, they don't cry. They attack. The day before the reunion, my mother called me again. Her tone was different this time. It wasn't demanding. It was desperate. James, she sounded old. Please come tomorrow. I know Vanessa was harsh, but we need family right now. The electricity was almost cut off yesterday. Robert had to sell his Rolex to pay the bill. It's frightening. Why didn't you ask me for help with the bill, Mom? I asked gently. Robert said he had it handled. He said it was a banking error. But I saw the pawn shop ticket. She started crying. I think we are losing everything, James. And Vanessa is acting like everything is fine. She's demanding we still hold the reunion. She says we have to keep up appearances. Keep up appearances, I repeated. The family motto. I'll be there, Mom. Promise. And I'll fix it. You will? She sniffled. You have a few $100s to spare? I have a solution, Mom. Just trust me. I hung up. I looked at the dossier on my desk. I wasn't bringing a few $100s. I was bringing the truth. The morning of the reunion, I put on my best suit. Not the cheap stuff I usually wore around them. A custom-tailored Italian suit I bought in Milan. I put on my Patek Philippe watch. Sarah walked out wearing a stunning dress she had saved for a special occasion. We dressed the kids like royalty. We look like we're going to a coronation, Sarah joked nervously. No, I said, checking my reflection. We're going to an eviction. We got in the car, not the minivan. I had called a driver to bring around my other car. The one I kept in storage. A black S-Class Mercedes. As we drove toward the estate, I felt a strange sense of calm. The guilt was gone. The fear was gone. All that was left was the cold, hard need for justice. We pulled up to the gates. They were open. The lawn was half dead. The fountain was empty and filled with dead leaves. It looked like a kingdom in ruin. We parked right in the front, next to Robert's dirty Porsche. I stepped out. The guests were already there, aunts, cousins, old family friends. They were whispering. The food was meager, store-bought platters instead of catered service. The wine was cheap. Vanessa was standing on the porch, wearing a dress that looked a bit too worn. When she saw us, her jaw dropped. She saw the car. She saw the suit. She saw the confidence. She didn't greet us. She marched down the steps. I thought I told you not to come, she hissed, but her eyes were darting to my watch. She recognized the brand. And what is this? Did you rent a car to impress us? Hello, Vanessa, I said, my voice projecting clearly across the lawn. Nice party. A bit rustic compared to last year. Isn't it? Get out. She pointed to the gate. Get off my property. Now, or I call the police. The music stopped. Everyone looked at us. Robert came running over, looking sweaty and pale. James, don't cause a scene, Robert pleaded. Just go. I'm not going anywhere, Robert, I said. I signaled to the entrance. A black SUV pulled up. Vance stepped out holding a briefcase. Behind him, 2 large men in dark suits, my security. Who is that? Vanessa shrieked. Who are these people? That's my lawyer, I said. And we need to have a family meeting. Everyone gathered around. Now, this was it. The moment of no return. The silence on the lawn was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. About 30 people, cousins, aunts, uncles, and my trembling parents, formed a semicircle around the front steps where Vanessa, Robert, and I stood. Vanessa tried to regain control. She stepped up onto the first landing of the stairs, looking down at me. This is harassment, she announced to the crowd, her voice shaking but loud. James has brought strangers to intimidate us. This is a private residence. I want everyone to witness this aggression. It's not your residence, Vanessa, I said calmly. I didn't shout. I didn't have to. Excuse me, she laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. My name is on the mail. My husband is the heir. Your husband is the heir to debt, I said. Vance, please. Vance stepped forward. He didn't look at Vanessa. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a single, thick document bound in blue. Ladies and gentlemen, Vance spoke with the boom of a courtroom prosecutor. My name is Arthur Vance, representing JH Holdings LLC. 5 years ago, this property, the Hawthorne Estate, was scheduled for foreclosure auction due to non-payment of mortgage by Mr. and Mrs. William Hawthorne. My mother gasped. The crowd murmured. Foreclosure? The Hawthornes? Impossible. At the 11th hour, Vance continued, the debt was purchased, and the title was transferred to JH Holdings. The previous owners were allowed to remain as tenants under a specialized trust agreement. So what? Robert shouted, sweat pouring down his forehead. So some company owns the mortgage. We still live here. We are the family. Robert, I said, cutting him off. Who do you think owns JH Holdings? Robert looked at me. He looked at the car I arrived in. He looked at the suit. The gears in his head were grinding, rusty and slow. No, he whispered. No way. JH stands for James Hawthorne, I said. The gasp from the crowd was audible this time. Vanessa's face went white, like sheet of paper white. You, Vanessa sputtered. You drive a minivan. You fix computers. I founded a logistics software company called Logitech, I said, stepping up one stair so I was eye level with her. I sold it 5 years ago for $12 million. I bought this house to save Mom and Dad from being homeless. I set up the trust to pay for your parties, your landscaping, your pool, and your wine. I turned to the crowd. For 5 years, I have paid every single bill for this estate. I did it anonymously because I didn't want gratitude. I just wanted my family to be safe. I turned back to Vanessa. Her mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. But last month, I continued, my voice hardening. You told my children they were trash. You told me I wasn't welcome in your house. You humiliated my wife. So, I did the only logical thing. I pulled a remote control from my pocket. I had set up a portable projector screen earlier with the help of the security team, who were actually AV Tech/security. I clicked the button. The image projected clearly in the shaded porch area. Slide 1, the bank transfers. A list of monthly payments from James Hawthorne Personal to Hawthorne Family Trust. $15,000 March catering. $4,200 pool repair. $8,000 Robert's lease payment. You see that? I pointed. That's not a bank error, Robert. That's me paying for your Porsche. That's me paying for the shrimp you ate last Easter. James, please. My mother sobbed, stepping forward. Please stop. Not in front of everyone. You didn't stop her when she yelled at Ben, Mom, I said, not looking away from Vanessa. You let her kick us out. You chose your side. You chose the appearance of wealth over your actual son. I clicked the remote again. Slide 2, the theft. And here is the fun part, I said. Twist number 2. Robert, want to explain the withdrawals? The screen showed transfers from the parents' retirement fund to online casino holdings and Moretti Enterprises. Robert has been stealing from Mom and Dad, I told the crowd. He drained their pension. And when he ran out of that, he tried to borrow from me. When I said no, he tried to bully me. Vanessa turned to Robert. Her eyes were wide with horror. Not horror at the theft, but horror at the poverty. You're broke? She whispered. Robert, tell me it's not true. Tell me you have money. Robert looked at his shoes. He was crying. A grown man, weeping because his lies had finally caught up. He has nothing, Vanessa, I said. And neither do you, because as of this morning, I have dissolved the tenancy agreement. Vance stepped up and handed Vanessa a manila envelope. This is an eviction notice, Vance said legally. You have 7 days to vacate the premises. The locks will be changed next Sunday. You can't do this, Vanessa screamed. She grabbed the envelope and tore it in half. We are family. You can't evict family. You banned family from Easter, I reminded her. You set the rules, Vanessa. I'm just playing by them. You wanted a refined, exclusive environment? Well, I'm excluding you. I looked at my parents. They were clinging to each other, looking at me with a mix of fear and awe. Mom, Dad? I said softer. I bought a condo in town. It's paid for. It's small, but it's nice. You can live there. I won't let you starve. But this, I gestured to the mansion, the dead fountain, the fake glory. This ends today. No more parties. No more pretending. I turned to the guests. I apologize for ruining the barbecue, but I think it's time everyone went home. The silence lingered for another second, and then chaos broke. Cousins started whispering furiously. Robert collapsed onto the stairs, head in hands. Vanessa stood there, staring at me with pure hatred, realizing she had insulted the only person on earth who could have saved her. I walked back to my car. Sarah took my hand. She was beaming. That, she whispered, was better than any movie. I looked back one last time. Vanessa was screaming at Robert, hitting his chest. My parents were reading the deed Vance had left on the table. I felt lighter than I had in 20 years. We didn't stay to watch the packing. We drove home, ordered pizza, and for the first time in forever, I didn't worry about my phone ringing. But the fallout was immediate and catastrophic for them. The next morning, I got a call from Aunt Clara. She was practically gleeful. James, honey, it's a war zone over there, she reported. After you left, 2 men showed up. Big guys. Looking for Robert. Vinny's guys? I asked. Yep. They repoed the Porsche right out of the driveway while the guests were still walking to their cars. Vanessa tried to stop them and they just laughed at her. They told her, your husband owes Mr. Moretti 50 large, lady. Consider the car a down payment. 50,000? I whistled. He was in deep. It gets better, Clara said. Vanessa left last night. She packed 3 suitcases of her designer clothes, which I assume you paid for, and went to her mother's house. She told Robert she's filing for divorce. Cited financial fraud or something. I shook my head. Of course she did. She didn't love him. She loved the lifestyle. And your parents? I asked, hesitating. They are in shock, Clara said. Your dad is furious at Robert, but your mom? She's struggling, James. She keeps asking why you had to be so cruel publicly. She still thinks you should have bailed them out quietly. I did bail them out quietly, I said. For 5 years. Look where that got me. That afternoon, I went to the condo I had bought for my parents. It was a nice place. 2 bedrooms, modern kitchen, safe neighborhood. It wasn't the Hawthorne estate, but it was better than they deserved. I met my parents there to give them the keys. They pulled up in my dad's old Lincoln. They looked 10 years older than they had yesterday. This is it? My mother said, looking at the building. An apartment complex? It's a condo, Mom, I said. It's fully paid off. You just have to pay utilities. It's small, she sniffed. It's free, I reminded her. And it's yours. Unlike the estate, which I am putting on the market next week. James, my dad stepped forward. He looked humbled, finally. We didn't know. About the money. About Robert stealing the pension. You didn't want to know, Dad, I said. You saw Robert wearing a nice suit and you stopped asking questions. You saw me in a t-shirt and you stopped respecting me. We are sorry, Dad said. Sounded forced, but it was there. I accept your apology, I said. But things are different now. I'm not the bank. I'm your son. If you want a relationship with me, with your grandkids, it happens on my terms. No more insults. No more favoritism. And if Vanessa ever comes around, you shut the door. She's gone, Mom said bitterly. She sent Robert divorce papers this morning. She called us peasants. I almost laughed. Well, at least we agree on something about her. I handed them the keys. Robert is on his own. Do not let him move in here. This place is for 2 people. If I find out he's crashing on the couch, I sell the place. He's your brother, Mom pleaded weakly. He's a thief, I said. And he needs to hit rock bottom before he can climb out. I drove away. I felt a pang of sadness for my parents. They were victims of their own vanity, but mostly, I felt relief. The leech had been pulled off. The wound could finally heal. But just when I thought the drama was over, my phone beeped. An email from Vanessa. Subject: Let's talk. James, I know we've had our differences, but I was manipulated by Robert too. I didn't know the money came from you. If I had known you were such a successful businessman, I would have treated you with the respect you deserve. I'm leaving Robert. Maybe we could get coffee? I have some ideas for your investment portfolio. Let's keep the money in the family. I stared at the screen. The audacity was breathtaking. She was trying to jump from the sinking ship onto the lifeboat that she had tried to torpedo. I typed a reply. 2 words. Blocked. Goodbye. I hit send. That night, I tucked Ben and Mia into bed. Daddy, Mia asked, are we going back to the big house with the mean auntie? No, sweetie. I kissed her forehead. We aren't going back there. We're going to build our own castle. A happy one. With no yelling? She asked. With absolutely no yelling, I promised. I walked out of their room, ready to start the rest of my life. The toxic chapter was closed. Or so I thought. The dust didn't settle overnight. When you detonate a nuclear bomb in the middle of a family dynamic, the radiation lingers. 6 months passed since the confrontation at the estate. 6 months since I stood on those steps and told the truth. I thought I would feel guilty. I thought I would wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, wondering if I had been too harsh on my own flesh and blood. But the guilt never came. Instead, I slept like a baby. My wife, Sarah, noticed the change immediately. My shoulders weren't hunched anymore. I didn't flinch when my phone rang. The estate, that massive, white-pillared monument to my parents' vanity, was gone. I didn't keep it. Couldn't. Walking through those halls just reminded me of the insults, the exclusion, and the years of financial bleeding. I sold it to a developer who turned it into a luxury boutique hotel. The proceeds from the sale were significant. I took every penny of it and put it into college funds for Ben, Mia, and, surprisingly to some, my niece, Emily. Emily was the innocent casualty in all of this, while her parents, Robert and Vanessa, were engaged in a war of mutual destruction. She was just a confused little girl whose world had imploded. Let's talk about that war. Because if you think the eviction was ugly, the divorce was a horror show. I got the updates from Vance, my attorney. Since Robert had been using family funds illicitly, there were legal entanglements that kept pulling me back in as a witness. Vanessa filed for divorce 3 days after leaving the house. She went for the jugular. She demanded alimony, full custody, and half of Robert's assets. The problem, of course, was that Robert had no assets. He had negative assets. I remember sitting in a deposition room a few months ago. The table was long and polished. Vanessa was on one side, looking thinner, her face hard and bitter. Robert was on the other, looking like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. He was wearing a suit that was clearly too big for him now. The stress diet had taken its toll. Vanessa's lawyer, a shark with a cheap suit, tried to argue that Robert had hidden assets in offshore accounts. Mr. Hawthorne, the lawyer asked me, is it true that your brother managed a significant portfolio for the family trust? I leaned into the microphone. My brother managed nothing. He was a beneficiary of charity. The only thing he managed to do was embezzle $40,000 from our parents' retirement fund to pay off illegal gambling debts. Vanessa's eyes went wide. She turned to Robert. You stole from your parents? I thought you were investing it. I was trying to win it back. Robert shouted, slamming his hand on the table. I was trying to pay for your trips. Do you know how much that trip to Cabo cost? 12 grand. Vanessa, I didn't have 12 grand. I took it from Mom's pension because you said you'd leave me if we didn't go. I never said that. You said I was boring. You said I was a failure compared to your friends' husbands. The lawyers had to separate them. It was pathetic. It was tragic. Two people who had built a marriage on the foundation of looking rich, crumbling the moment the money ran out. Robert declared bankruptcy 2 weeks later. The Porsche was gone. His reputation in the banking world was shredded. He was unhireable in finance. Last Tuesday I saw him. I was at the local hardware store, picking up some supplies for a treehouse I was building for the kids. I turned the aisle into the lumber section, and there he was. He was wearing an orange vest. He was stacking two X4S onto a shelf. My brother, the golden child, the vice president, the man who used to make fun of my computer games. He saw me. He froze. He looked like he wanted to run, but he was holding a heavy plank of wood. James, he said. His voice was rough. Robert. I nodded. I didn't mock him. I didn't feel the need to. The universe had already done the work. I work here now, he said, gesturing vaguely to the lumber. Manager gave me a shot. It's honest work. It is, I said. There's no shame in honest work, Rob. He put the wood down. He looked at his hands, which were rough and covered in sawdust. Vanessa got the divorce finalized. She took the dog. Can you believe that? She hates that dog. She just took it to spite me. I'm sorry, I said. I'm living in a studio apartment above a garage, he continued. It's quiet. Mom and Dad call me sometimes. They say the condo is nice. It is nice, I said. It's warm. He looked me in the eye, and for the first time in 40 years, I saw my brother. Not the projection of my parents' dreams, not the bully, but the human being. I messed up, James, he whispered. I messed up everything. I thought if I stopped spending, she wouldn't love me. And I was right. You were buying love with counterfeit money, Rob, I said gently. It was never going to last. I know. He wiped his nose. I know that now. I didn't offer him money. I didn't offer him a job. That would have been enabling him again. He needed to sweat. He needed to build his own life plank by plank, just like I did. I gotta get back to work, he said. Manager is watching. Take care, Robert, I said. I walked away feeling a strange sense of peace. He was at rock bottom, yes, but for the first time he was standing on solid ground. My parents were a different story. The transition to the condo was brutal for them. They went from a 6-bedroom estate with a pool to a 2-bedroom unit in a complex filled with retirees and young couples. For the first month, my mother refused to leave the apartment. She felt shamed. She felt like everyone knew they had fallen. I went to visit them every Sunday. I brought groceries. I sat with them. This kitchen is too small, Mom complained one afternoon, trying to chop vegetables on the compact counter. How is one supposed to host a dinner party here? You don't host dinner parties for 50 people anymore, Mom, I said, grabbing a knife to help her. You host dinner for us, for family. But the Joneses asked where we moved, she sighed. I told them we were downsizing for ecological reasons. I couldn't bear to tell them we were broke. Mom, I stopped cutting. The Joneses don't care. And if they do care, they aren't your friends. Look at this place. It's clean. It's safe. And the bills are paid. You don't have to worry about the electricity being cut off anymore. Isn't that worth something? She looked around the small living room. My dad was sitting in his recliner watching a baseball game. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing sweatpants. He looked relaxed. Your father seems happy, she admitted softly. He sleeps better. He doesn't have to listen to Robert asking for loans every week. And you? I asked. She looked at me. I miss the garden. But I like that you visit. You never visited at the big house. I didn't feel welcome at the big house, Mom. She put down the knife. She reached out and touched my hand. Her hand was shaking slightly. I let her treat you badly, she whispered. Vanessa, I let her talk to you like a servant because I was afraid of her. I was afraid she would take Robert and the grandkid away. I was a coward, James. It was the apology I had waited 30 years to hear. It's okay, Mom, I said. We're here now. We ate dinner that night at a small IKEA table. It wasn't fancy. The pasta was overcooked. But there was no tension. There was no one checking their watch. There was no one bragging about a fake bonus. It was just us. And what about Vanessa? I heard through the grapevine, Aunt Clara of course, that she was on the prowl. She was hitting the singles mixers at the country club, trying to find another host for her parasitic lifestyle. But small towns talk. And the story of the fake heiress, who got evicted by her brother-in-law, had circulated. The wealthy men she targeted knew the score. They avoided her. Last I heard, she moved 2 towns over, working as a receptionist at a dental clinic. I hope she's doing well. I hope she's learning that you can't treat people like garbage and expect to be treated like a queen. But honestly, I don't think about her much. I have a treehouse to build. 1 year. It has been exactly 1 year since the Easter brunch incident. The calendar circled back to that Sunday, and the difference in my life is so stark it feels like I stepped into a different dimension. This year, we didn't go to the country club. We didn't wear stiff suits or uncomfortable dresses. We didn't worry about parking the wrong car in the driveway. We hosted Easter at our house. My house is a standard 4-bedroom suburban home. It has a mortgage. The grass isn't manicured by a team of landscapers. I mow it myself on Saturdays, and I love it. We set up folding tables in the backyard. Sarah made her famous potato salad, the one she was too afraid to open at Vanessa's table. I fired up the grill. The smell of charcoal and burgers filled the air. Ben and Mia were running through the sprinklers, screaming with joy. They weren't worried about staining an antique rug. They were just being kids. About an hour before we were set to eat, a car pulled up. A generic sedan. Robert stepped out. He looked different. He had lost the fake tan. His hair was graying at the temples. He was wearing jeans and a polo shirt. He held a small box of donuts from a local bakery. I walked over to the driveway to meet him. Hey, he said, looking a bit nervous. Is it still okay that I came? Of course, I said. I invited you, didn't I? Yeah, well, he shifted his weight. I wasn't sure if you meant it. I meant it. He looked toward the backyard where the kids were playing. Is Emily here? She's inside with Mom, I said. She's been asking for you. Robert's face crumpled for a second. Then he composed himself. Under the terms of the custody arrangement, he only saw Emily every other weekend. Vanessa made it hard for him. But today was my turf, and on my turf, family comes first. We walked into the backyard. My parents were sitting in lawn chairs, drinking iced tea. When they saw Robert, my mom stood up. She didn't scream about his job title. She just hugged him. You look thin, Robbie, she said. Eat a burger. I will, Mom, he smiled. A real smile. Then, the moment I was watching for. Robert knelt down in the grass. Ben and Mia stopped running. They looked at him suspiciously. They remembered him as the uncle who ignored them, the uncle who let their aunt yell at them. Hey guys, Robert said softly. I brought donuts. Chocolate glazed. Ben took a step forward. Are we allowed to eat them? Yeah, Robert said, his voice catching. You can eat them anywhere you want. You can eat them on the roof if your dad lets you. And, I'm sorry. About before. Uncle Rob was confused. But I'm better now. Ben looked at me. I nodded. Ben grabbed a donut. Thanks, Uncle Rob. And just like that, the bridge was rebuilt. Not with money, not with grand gestures, but with a chocolate donut and a little bit of humility. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the lawn, I sat back on the deck with a cold beer. I looked at the scene. My dad was teaching Ben how to throw a curveball. My mom was laughing with Sarah. Robert was pushing Emily on the swing set. It wasn't perfect. Robert was still digging himself out of debt. My parents were still adjusting to a life without luxury. I still had scars from years of being the outcast. But it was real. There were no secrets here. No one was pretending to be a millionaire. No one was secretly funding a lifestyle to buy affection. We were just a family, flawed and broken and glued back together with something stronger than cash. I thought about the Hawthorne legacy my father used to talk about. He thought the legacy was the estate, the name, the membership at the club. He was wrong. The legacy is this. It's the ability to sit in your own backyard, with no debts and no lies, and watch your children laugh. Sarah sat down next to me, resting her head on my shoulder. You did good, James, she whispered. We did good, I corrected her. I couldn't have done it without you. Do you miss it? She asked. Being the secret millionaire? Having that power over them? I took a sip of beer. Not even for a second. The power I have now is better. The power to say no. The power to protect you guys. Vanessa sent me a friend request on Facebook yesterday. Sarah laughed. You're kidding. Nope. I think she saw the pictures of our vacation to Hawaii. She wants to reconnect. What did you do? I deleted it, she said. Trash belongs in the bin, right? I laughed. That's mean, but fair. I looked out at my kids one last time. Ben tripped on the grass and scraped his knee. He didn't cry. He stood up, brushed the dirt off and kept running. That's the lesson I want them to learn. You will fall. People will push you down. Family might even betray you. But you don't stay down. You don't let them define your worth. You build your own house, you earn your own way, and you surround yourself with people who love you for you, not for what you can give them. My name is James Hawthorne. I used to be the backup child, the bank, the doormat. Today, I'm just a father, a husband, and a brother. And that is more than enough. And that, my friends, is how I evicted my toxic family and found my actual life. It wasn't easy and it wasn't pretty, but sometimes you have to burn the dead wood to let the forest grow again. If you are dealing with family members who drain you, financially or emotionally, take this as your sign. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to say no. You have the right to protect your peace. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that subscribe button. Until next time.